Na 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 na. Hey YouTube, welcome back to another exciting episode of Vin Plays Fantasy Football. So, week one is in the record books now. We had some successes, we had some victories. Let's go ahead and dive in and review how we did. So, right now I am in my Yahoo Fantasy League. This is the league that I am the commissioner of. And as you can see, we did pretty well. We stomped pretty hard on Dak in the Box. I accidentally feel a little sorry for her. But yeah, we did relatively well in this league. There are, despite doing so well though, there are some points of concern that there are some performances that are concerning to me. But let's go ahead and go over our successes first. Devante Adams balled the F out. Like, oh my goodness. 156 receiving yards here, 2 receiving touchdowns. I actually watched this game. Devante Adams is the man, particularly now that Michael Thomas is injured. He's hurt, and I actually saw in Roto World that he's going to probably miss a few games or a few weeks. So that being said, Devante Adams could very easily be the number one wide receiver for the year. So grabbing him where we grabbed him on the turn, man, I'm very excited to watch Devante Adams for the rest of this year. The same thing with Robert Woods. I watched that game as well. Robert Woods with Jared Goff, actually. Watching Robert Woods, that was very encouraging. Robert Woods got the majority of the targets from Jared Goff, and as you can see, yeah, he grabbed a ton of yardage. He didn't even have to score. Robert Woods is going to be very, very reliable. So Devante Adams and Robert Woods are going to be more or less just pasted into our lineups week in and week out. Going back to that game though, Jared Goff is he is very concerning for me. I don't know if you remember from last time, I did draft two quarterbacks, Jared Goff and Joe Burrow. I ended up dropping Joe Burrow. I'll get into that a little bit later. But for Jared Goff in this game against the Cowboys, man, they do not want to throw deep. Like the Rams do not want to throw deep, and it makes a lot of sense because since they no longer have Brandon Cooks, who was their deep threat receiver for the past few years. But they do not want to throw deep, and not only do they not want to throw deep, but in situations where they had to throw deep, like on 3rd and long, Jared Goff just didn't make great throws. So that is very concerning, especially since during that game, their run game was doing pretty well. Their run game looked really good. Particularly Malcolm Brown. Malcolm Brown looked very effective. Cam Akers did get the start, but Malcolm Brown did look like the better running back on that team on Sunday. Yeah, Sunday night. He looks like the best running back on that team right now. It's still probably only a matter of time before Cam Akers does take over that job. But as far as right now, I wouldn't be surprised if for the next few games, Malcolm Brown will be that will more or less the guy to start or the guy to have in that backfield. But going back to Jared Goff is like the run game was going well, so they were running in all their goal lines and all their touchdowns were basically rushing touchdowns. So he got no touchdown. Goff got no passing touchdowns, and he wasn't throwing deep. He was only throwing. He was basically throwing all his passes into the flat. All his passes were within like 20 yards, 15, 20 yards of the line of scrimmage. He was making good passes when he was passing those quick short throws, primarily to Robert Woods, a little bit to Cooper Kupp, and also to his two tight ends, Tyler Higbee and Gerald Everett. Higbee had a kind of disappointing game. He didn't score all that much. He caught a few passes, but there are a lot of people who are expecting a breakout from Higbee, which still might come to pass actually, because Gerald Everett is hurt now. He got hurt during that game, so I'm not sure how much time he's going to miss, but he's probably going to miss some time. So during that time, that he's out, with Tyler Higbee being the only tight end, there was an opportunity for him to do what he did last year, essentially. But going down the list here, Josh Jacobs, oh man, he had 3 touchdowns. He had some passes here, 4 receptions. Man, he is the total. If last game is any indicator, and I didn't get to watch this game, this wasn't on television in my area, but if this is any indicator of things to come, Josh Jacobs is going to be a top 5 running back. For the season, man. If he's catching passes, and if they're using him nearly as much as they did during this game, man, the future is very exciting, and I'm glad to have him on our squad here. Carson, or I almost said Carson Wentz. Chris Carson here, he did do really well, but it was mostly through passing. See, he got 2 receiving touchdowns here. I didn't have the pleasure of watching this game either, but it's kind of concerning that Seattle, apparently from what I heard about this game, Seattle was leaning on Russell Wilson, like regardless of where they were at during the game. Like they were ahead and in control for most of this game, but they were still passing, which relying on Russell Wilson, which is probably best for that team, since Russell Wilson is just that good that you should probably just run everything through him. But as far as Chris Carson is concerned, he can catch passes and he can be involved in the receiving side of the game, but he's mostly a running back. He's mostly a runner. So if they're going to be drastically reducing the amount of times they run, or their like run philosophy from last year, it's a little concerning to see how much his fantasy value is going to hold up. So I'm glad that that you're always glad when they explode like this, when they give you like a 2 touchdown game. But as far as the future is concerned, I'm a little bit I'm like maybe on a scale of 5, or on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably like a 5 concerned right now about Chris Carson and his workload. Oh, Blake Jarwin was a big disappointment during this game, mostly because he got hurt. He only lasted I think through most of the first quarter, maybe into the second quarter, before he ended up tearing his ACL. We can see here. Yeah, he tore his ACL. He is going to be out for the rest of the year. I know a lot of people were really high on him, the footballers, my guys, my main podcast that I listen to. He was labeled as a breakout for them, but I guess it's not going to be this year. He is out for the season. We're going to have to drop him and try to find our replacement, another tight end. Although we do have Jonnu Smith as far as tight ends are concerned, and what I saw from him last night was pretty promising. He did get a bunch of targets, like 7, I believe. Let's go ahead and check. I believe he got 7 or 8 targets. Yeah, he got 7 or 8 targets, or 7 targets, and a touchdown as well. According to the footballers and some of the other things that I read, though, his quarterback Ryan Tannehill did pass more than he is expected to pass during most games, so it was a pass-heavy game. But as far as what I saw, he is a very good athlete. He's very big. He's very strong. He will always be a threat to take catch a pass and just bulldoze somebody all the way down to the end zone. So I don't mind too much starting him or having him as my main tight end. But we'll see who we could grab off of the waiver wires. But off the waiver wire, that is. Going down our list of starters, though, Raheem Mostert. Man, I watched that game as well, dude. He most of this came from one play where he caught a pass. He was all by himself, like maybe 15 yards away from the line of scrimmage. He was all by himself. He caught a pass, and then he just jetted right to he outran everybody right to the end zone. And I also remember, I read something from somewhere that said that it was the fastest that anyone has that they've clocked anybody running on the football field for over the past 3 seasons. So Raheem Mostert is a great athlete, and he got a bunch of carries too. I think he got around like 15 carries, I believe. Yeah, 15. He rushed for 15 times, and he got targeted as well. So if he keeps getting this workload, man, Mostert would be a steal where we drafted him. So he seems very promising right now, especially thinking about that game. And then we have our kicker and, of course, New England. Although, if you remember from last time, we did have a different kicker. Earlier, we had Michael Badgley, the Money Badger himself. I ended up dropping Michael Badgley for, I think I dropped him for Devin Harris because I wanted to pick up Devin Harris and put him in our IR spot, on one of our IR spots. If you recall from last time, in this league, I ended up adding 2 IR spots, mostly for Plague. There are Plague spots, but they're just general spots for now, but they're mostly to account for any problems we see with, in case anybody catches the plague and can't go on a moment's notice. But yeah, we ended up replacing him with replacing Badgley with Prater, and he did pretty well. 11 points is more or less, that's pretty good for a kicker. New England did pretty well too, although they were against Miami, so I'm not exactly sure what that means for that defense. I know they lost a bunch of players due to opt-out, plague opt-outs, so that's still undetermined how good that defense actually is. Going on to our bench a little bit, we did have some problems. We do have some problems because Le'Veon Bell is on IR. That kills our depth a little bit. I actually heard some rumors that I heard from the footballers, I think, that he hurt his hamstring, I believe, earlier in the game, and then later in the third quarter, Adam Gase put him back in, even though he knew that he was still hurt, and then he got hurt more, which is really a BS kind of move, but yeah, now he's ended up on IR, so the only saving grace to that is IR this year is only 3 games. So we will be throwing him into our second IR spot and grabbing somebody else in his stead. Zach Moss did, I think, score a touchdown, and it was kind of cemented during this game, from what I read anyways. I didn't watch this one either, but from what I read, it's pretty much cemented that he is the goal line back for this team. So that's really promising, and he did catch some passes too. See, he had 3 receptions, so there is a path to him being the main guy. Oops, stop doing that. The main guy on Buffalo. So we have to keep an eye out for that. Antonio Gibson was pretty disappointing, although I do give him a pass since he is a rookie, and this was his very first game, his very first NFL game. And not only that, the Eagles' run defense is pretty good. I actually did watch this game, and I don't know if the Eagles' O-line is just that tore up, but the Washington defense looks pretty legit. Their defensive line looks really legit. It's like for the first quarter or two, the Eagles O-line was kind of handling them a little bit. They were letting they weren't doing great, but they weren't doing bad. But towards the third quarter and onwards, the Washington defense was just destroying their O-line. They were touching Carson Wentz left and right. His play just went straight down the toilet because he was just getting manhandled for most of the game. And the Eagles were actually up 17-0 for like the first half of that game before their O-line basically just imploded against the Washington defense. So yeah, it was the game was a lot more exciting than initially anticipated, especially during the outset when the Eagles went up by 17 points. Going down the line, Jarvis Landry, he did give us a little bit of points, but I heard that game was kind of blah. Like, it was never really in contention. Baltimore pretty much ran away with that game. So pretty much undetermined. Like, I'm sure that like Jarvis Landry is pretty reliable, so I imagine he'll give us something around this line, maybe 5 to 10 fantasy points every game that he plays. Particularly, this is a good sign against Baltimore, though, since Baltimore is one of the best defenses in the league as well. David Montgomery, he didn't give us a good line, but from what I've heard, he had a lot of carries here. Like, okay, he rushed for 13 times. So then this was him coming back from a groin injury. So another depth piece here. We know he's going to be reliable. He might not be a high upside start, but anytime we need to plug somebody in just to give us points, we could very much plug in David Montgomery. I'd feel comfortable starting him. Like if Raheem Mostert had a really bad matchup, then I wouldn't mind plugging him in for David Montgomery. And then we have Jonnu Smith here. I talked about a little bit before. I don't feel so bad about him being my lead tight end. And then Eric Ebron, man. I ended up dropping Joe Burrow, who Joe Burrow did look pretty good. I watched that game as well. For a rookie and for his first game, he looked all right. There was one like brain fart moment where he more or less just shoveled past the pass right into a defender. But more or less otherwise, he was hitting some guys. He looked pretty poised. He looked all right, and he did give put his team in a position to tie, because he put them in field goal range in the last few moments of the game. But his kicker ended up just missing the kick. So I'm really encouraged with Joe Burrow. I'm not sure if he'll be super fantasy relevant this year, but as far as a player, he did really well. And then we do have Devin Harris that we picked up late, just to stash on our IR. So let's go ahead and just take a quick look at what players we have available to pick up on waivers. We are going to need another quarterback, since let's go ahead and not all offense. Let's sort by quarterback. Gardner Minshew is probably going to be the top guy I'm looking to get. From what I've heard and read, that they're going to be behind in virtually every game they play. So Gardner Minshew is going to need to throw some more. So yeah, Gardner Minshew, we're going to look to pick up him. Kirk Cousins is actually in the same kind of boat. They're going to need to throw. Their defense looks totally awful. I watched that game too. Their defense is not what it used to be. So Kirk Cousins is probably going to need to throw. More or less, yeah. He's going to need to throw for most of his games as well. I wouldn't mind picking up Joe Burrow again here. Drew Lock looked all right. But as far as quarterbacks, those are the guys we're going to be looking to grab. I'm pretty sure most of the teams in this league have like better quarterbacks than I do, anyways. So I'm not anticipating. I probably won't throw more than 5% of my fab at any of these guys. Probably 5% of my fab at Gardner Minshew, and then for all these other guys, I'll probably just do $0 bids for them. And then for running back, I believe Nyheim Hines is on. Yeah, Nyheim Hines is available. We do have a bunch of running back depth on our squad, so I'm not sure about I might just put a cursory like $10 to $15 fab, 15 fab bid on him, just so he's not given away, just so nobody gets him for free essentially. But I seriously doubt that bid is going to nab me him. Joshua Kelly is another guy that we could grab though. I'd probably put like a $0 or $1 bid on him. But he did shape up to be the goal line back, at least for the last game. So it looks like he's going to be the goal line back, and he did hop over Justin Jackson as the main backup for that team for the Rams. Benny Snell, oh man, James Conner, he only lasted about a quarter before he hurt himself. So Benny Snell is a guy that I wouldn't mind stashing, just to stash to see if James Conner could hold up for the entire year. So Again, for these guys, Joshua Kelly, probably a $1 bid, probably no dollar bid. Benny Snell, maybe up to 5 fab. Otherwise, I don't think Tony Pollard we could grab as a $0 bid if I don't have anybody else to pick up. But just because he's a lottery ticket in case anything happens to Ezekiel Elliott. But our main lookout right now would be for tight end. We are pretty thin. Jonnu Smith is our only real guy there. Logan Thomas did do pretty well. He got, I think, 7 or 8 targets. I can't see. It doesn't really say here. But he did get 7 or 8 targets and a touchdown. And you know what? He's the only other pass catcher on that team. For the Washington football team, it was him and it was Terry McLaurin, Scary Terry. They were the only two guys that Haskins was throwing to. So if even passes coming from Haskins, if he's getting the volume, he's getting that volume. He's going to be productive week in, week out. So he's somebody to look out for. I'll probably throw $1 or 2 bid on him. Jimmy Graham did get a bunch of targets. I don't know if I really trust him though, because he's just so old now, and he just looks awful to watch now, especially compared to what he used to be. So I might do a $0 bid on him, just as a backup. And then yeah, we have Mike Gesicki here. He is available. One of my league, one of the teams in my league here dropped him actually, so we might make a bid for him. He didn't do well during this game, but he was playing against New England, and he probably won't do well during the next game because they're playing against Buffalo. Those are two great defenses. But I also read that Devontae Parker is going to be injured, so or it was injured, I should say. So he's probably going to miss some games. So they're really hurting for pass catchers on this team. So again, like with Logan Thomas, since they're hurting for pass catchers, they don't really have any. It would be a good opportunity for Mike Gesicki to get more passes from Ryan Fitzpatrick. So we also will look out for him. We'll also probably put like maybe a couple buck, a couple of fab. We'll throw a couple of fab on him. Right now I'm leaning towards Logan Thomas though, just from what I've seen. Probably Logan Thomas, then Mike Gesicki, then Jimmy Graham. Otherwise, there's nobody else here really that sticks out to me. And yeah, so that pretty much does it for this league. This video is starting to get kind of long. I think I might just reduce these videos to just my main league here on Yahoo, since these videos do get kind of long. If anybody wants to see what's happening with my ESPN league, just go ahead and leave a comment below. But otherwise, thanks again for watching another episode of Vin Plays Fantasy Football. I'll be posting again, going over my thoughts about my starters for week 2 in a couple of days. But yeah, thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time.